Hello and welcome. My name is Sunny, and this is an update on Bash API checks. Now, if you have seen my older video on it, uh, Bash API checks had a lot of limitations. The first one was the entire code was monolithic, so I can actually show you here. Go to add demo link, browse files, src, and here you go. See, monolithic means the entirety of the code is in just one file. See here, we have the user's endpoint being pinged. Here is register, login, and resources. That was the one big change. And the second big change was the execution. See right here, it says case $1 in. That means it's only checking the first argument. So if you ran check.sh login register and resources, it will only execute login. It won't execute register or resources. So replace that. Now the current structure of the project is much more modular, and I have moved all of the data into separate files. See, check.sh, you have libs and API. API is the actual code for pinging the endpoints and performing checks. For example, let's see login.sh. Right here, see, it's the same login endpoint, but instead of the curl code here that used to be there, we are actually calling a method called getCode. And here is the another one, getBody. So we can now check message body as well. Check.sh. This is much better now. Now check.sh is the main file that still gets executed. And see here, in the old code, args arguments was hard-coded or manually written. Here it just picks up the file names from the API folder and adds it to args. So at the end, you will have these values. And we are then importing variables and the curl functions, and finally all the APIs. The common function file uses variables from the var file, and the API checks call on common functions. Now here is the check for if any arguments are there or not. If not, earlier it used to be just no API endpoint specified, specify an API endpoint, but right now you'll get a usage message. And finally, this is the all argument block. So what this means is, I can show you here. This is Sigwin, by the way. So we can do check.sh. I can write login, all, and resources. So what this will do is, this block will do is, it will see if the keyword all is present. If it is, it will execute every single endpoint and exit. That means you won't have double execution of login and resources. See, it's just that all endpoints selected. And here we go. See, so we just have single execution of every single endpoint. We have users, resources, register, login. But I've mentioned login and resources. There's no double execution. Now here, after that, all check. And the reason why it exits is because of this thing, exit 0. Now, if all is not present, then it simply checks whether the argument is in the args list. If it is, it executes that with the appropriate function name. That's it. So let's talk with var.sh. var.sh contains all your variables. You have the base URL, you have the API endpoints, even the JSON for post, put, and patch. That's there. Now in common functions, this is where all the curl code is. So get code is just to get the status code. And with bash, what happens is you don't have a return statement. Well, technically you do, but the return statement only returns numerical values, and that's for the status or the exit code for the script. So you cannot return text or anything like that. So in order to do that, what I've done is we can do echo, and that's what I've done here. So your entire curl code is here, And here is a fun thing. For put and patch, I'm using something called reference variables. So this is local minus n. So what this does is, and this had to be done in this way. I will explain why later. Here is the usage message we saw in check.sh. Right here, usage message. So it just prints out how to run this. And for the response body, it's a separate method. Again, we are doing echo to return back the response body, and you can then check out if it contains what you want. Now, as I've mentioned, we are using reference variables for put and patch. The reasoning behind that is how Bash handles white spaces. So if you go into where.sh, here it is, others API. See, the job field has the value Zion space resident. So if you pass in normally, what happens is you will get the message body, but the $4 value, it may become this section, this thing, this whole highlighted section. This is what $4 becomes. But we don't want that. We actually want whether it's JSON or not. So that's why I have passed this to reference, and you can actually see it in action. Users has that. Here, let's see, send others API as a reference. So if you're sending it by a reference, you don't have to write dollar and then the variable name, just the variable name itself. See, others API is just mentioned as is, instead of like here, dollar and then valid. So that's one big change. And to check the message body, here's one for checking the message body. This is your message, sorry, status code, and here's the message body. So we said get body, get the response body. We have variables for checking what it should contain, and we simply do an if block and check if it's there or not. I did an execution of all endpoint, so it should be there. Let's see, 1.1 post login body check token, and this, whatever this value is, passed. So that's about it. Now this is far more modular. And before I exit, another thing, if you look at common functions, all of the endpoints have an if block, and within the if block is the curl statement. Now the if block mentions if $4 is JSON. That means you can add an elif here for, okay, it's YML, it's text, or it's something else, and you can do an appropriate curl statement then. So that allows for expansion as well. Well, that's about it. Thank you and have a good day. Bye.